Yeah.
All right, everyone. This is episode 25. Once again, I'm with my brother Dan Zemer. I'm Mike Manley. And in this episode, we're going to kick on beginner mistakes to avoid 2024, because we did this last year.
Yeah.
Went over a lot of stuff. And we have more content to add to that because, well, we keep making mistakes.
Yeah.
And but we're going to start the episode off with some content, some questions from actually a big question from one of our listeners, RJ. This is for you. He has a hunting spot that he wants to go to, kind of going in blind. He's been in the area, but hasn't really had a lot of opportunity to really scout a lot. He has a very small window of opportunity at the end of October. I think he said October 21st to 26th to go in this particular area to hunt. And he's kind of going in blind. He saw some deer there. He kind of knows the lay of the land a little bit. But he has some questions about kind of where would we start? How would we break it down? And with that area, first off, let's go into some detail before we start, kind of get an overview of the potential area he's going into. He basically has a valley he's going into that has huge, steep ridge lines on either side of him in the one area. And it's got a lot of draws going up into these, and at the top of these mountains, it's some serious flats too, which is great. But there's a lot of draws, there's a lot of points. So that lends for potentially a lot of bedding areas, especially if it's heavy mountain laurel.
Yeah.
In those areas. But there's streams that he fished in there that he got. They saw some deer, saw 10 point, saw a bull elk too.
Yeah. She said it was like watching his chocolate lab, I think he said, watching it just laying there all relaxed, chilling out, chewing on something. He said this calf or the bull was just like practically in somebody's yard, just hanging out, just eating, like all relaxed. It was pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
So we got a tremendous amount of detail. Send us pictures. I mean, on-X pictures of the area where he had spots marked out, some scrapes marked, potential scrape locations marked out and stuff. So with all that said, let's dive into it a little bit here. First off, these hills, these mountains on either side of the one location he was talking about are extremely steep.
Yeah.
And there's another location he has. There's a lot of roads branching off into the high ground. And so it leaves a potential for a lot of hunters as well. So
you briefed me on this and sent me some of the, information, and, it's pretty loaded. I mean, of how to attack this. And me and you had discussed this kind of last night. Yeah. And,
I'd want a tremendous amount of time to go in there and scout. There's so much territory there.
It's so much territory. It's pretty vast. But I think his best option, we had just discussed this, is going where everybody's not going to go. And unfortunately, it's not going to be a lot of fun. You're going to be in the thick, man. We have family up in that specific area. And just listen to them talk years and years and years of hunting. Now, this would more so apply to rifle hunting, but they would always talk about you got to be on the final bench before it goes up over the top, up on that flat, and that's where the buck are running, up there. But in rut, they're running down by the stream. So take that information and utilize that.
The one thing that with the dates that you're going in there, October 21st to 26th, a lot of people call that scrape week. Yeah. And I honestly believe that the 19th through the 21st of October, give or take each year, is some of the heaviest time to catch bucks daylighting at scrapes. And you had marked off some scrape locations on there that could be potentially high traffic and spots that you want to scout out right off the bat. Now, the one thing that we talked about as well is break it down a couple ways, right? You look at where are the hunters, where's the hunting pressure going?
Utilize them.
Utilize that hunting pressure to get where the deer are pushing into, right? So, and even do where you can come in access to the backside of it potentially. And that's all going to come down to winds
or get up above it and utilize those hunters. So let's just say hypothetically down here, it's more hardwoods and it gets into your mountain laurel, and you get up onto that upper bench that I was just talking about.
Upper 1/3.
And the laurel stops before it goes up over the mountain. get just on the other side of that laurel, give yourself a buffer. So when them lower hunters, the guys that don't want to go up where you're at, push them deer up through that laurel. And if they go the whole way through the laurel, they're going to be peeking out the other side and presenting some opportunities to you.
Yeah. So it's key to also look at those transitions between that.
Absolutely.
And look for the trails that parallel and go into that laurel, because they could pose opportunities for active scrapes, rubs, lining that transition, where you're running doe, not running does, but potentially trying to get does stirred up where doe bedding might be in those areas. And so if you come across doe bedding, I would just hunt, start right there and think about the fact that if you push some does out, you're probably not too far from a buck, because at that time frame, they're starting to sit on those doe bedding areas as you're peaking, you're getting right into the rut, especially the latter part of your week there. I think you can see that more.
And I think the negative of hunting laurel is, like we had just discussed prior to this podcast, is it's more of a rifle season type venture, where if they get into that laurel, they can kind of duck down and hide, and you got to kick them out like rabbits, and that's not fun. If you've been through mountain laurel, it sucks. It's not great.
Yeah, the thing is finding. There's a lot of areas there that I look at, especially in the one area that's the valley where you actually saw the deer and the elk. That area right there has minimal roads. Right, they go right there through the valley there. But in the northwest side of that, when you talk about that time frame too, it's starting to get colder. You're having those cold days, and those deer are probably going to want to bed on the leeward side of those mountains, being where the sun comes up and is hitting them right away, and it's going to give them the most warmth through the day versus the shaded side of the mountains.
Right.
So when you look at that, there's potentially points, right? There's potentially points where not at the top of the point, but on the inside edge of that point, that you'll find deer bedding, and they'll bed in there, especially in that thick mountain laurel, on those high benches that we're talking about. They'll bed in there, and that's the place that you want to offset yourself. The hardest thing about this, though, is getting in there quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, the distance you have to travel, the steep nature of the terrain, and how thick it can be. I mean, that could be a nightmare in there. Yeah. And being able to get in from the top side of it and come in from the back side would be awesome, but you also have to look at what are the winds going to be. Could you be blowing your scent all into that area? There's so many different factors that come into that. But that's why I think, even though you have a short window here, your first day could be spent more wisely by getting out there and doing scouting. And if you do see a spot that seems like there's a ton of hot sign right there, right then, really fresh.
Yeah.
I'll say you come upon a feed tree out there scouting, and it's a feed tree is a tree that just has a shit ton of acorns. I don't know if that's an actual measurement tool, but a shit ton of acorns.
That's a metric tool. That's a metric measurement. Tool. Shit ton, yeah.
A shit ton of acorns on it that aren't all capped, that are active, and you see tons of fresh deer scat, FFDS as Dan calls it.
Fairly fresh deer shit.
And you see it has to be fresh. It can't be old stuff, because they probably moved on to a different location primarily. But if that's there, and all these things that we're talking about are colliding with that, oh my God, that could be money you set up on it right there. But the thing is, you never know if you've pushed deer when you go in there, and you just assume that you're going to. Yeah,
you almost have to.
You have to assume that you're going to. And
that doesn't mean they relax enough to come back around.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you just didn't. If you bump a deer through sound, right? If you bump them through sound from your walk and your movement, they can potentially come back.
Yeah.
If they smell you,
you're done.
And you wind bump them through that scent, they're going to be gone.
Yeah.
So you got to hope that maybe you can get into a spot where other hunters can do that for you. But if you're going to where the hunters aren't that time of year, and you can connect on an active scrape, great feed trees, heavily traveled trails, going in, if it rains, that'd be money to go in a lot quieter.
Yeah.
So all those things, and on the inside edge of a point in that upper northwest side of the area where you saw the deer in that box that you have on there, we outlined the 460 acres. That, I think that would be a place to start for sure.
But the main issue is all the 3 weeks from opening day till you get there, leading up to that, and what has happened in that area with other hunters. Unfortunately,
you're not going to know.
It's public land. You're not going to know. And it is what it is. And that's why I think it's going to be important, me personally, is I know it's going to be dark. You're going to be going in with a flashlight, but scout your way in if scrapes are fresh. And at that time of the year, again, the foliage is falling on it like crazy. If there's not a lot of foliage or, leaves that have fallen on that scrape, it's fresher, maybe hunt near that. Give it a shot. Your first day is going to be pretty telling on how the next few days go for you.
The hot sign, man.
The hot sign. You got to hunt the hot sign.
You got to hunt the hot sign. If it's fresh, if it looks days old, that's not hot.
Yep.
If the rubs aren't tacky, you can't put them on there and get a little tackiness off that rub. It's not super fresh. Yeah. All right. If you can't see, if you have a rub line going and you have, what am I trying to say? The shavings from the tree at the base, that means the wind hasn't blown them away or anything. You got that's super fresh rubs.
Like, don't be looking for a historical rub. It's got to be fresh. That's the obvious.
At this time frame, yeah. Yeah, but a great telling tale too is fresh rubs that are surrounded by historical rubs.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great sign.
Yeah, because that's their alley.
If you have that coupled with scrape, oh my God, that's a great place to set up.
Yeah. By the way, we really appreciate how deep you went into this with the question, and it kind of gave us a little bit of homework to do, and I really respect that a lot. And thank you for your service, by the way.
Yep. But the bad thing is while we'd love to go deeper into this, we really can't, because there's a lot of detail that would only be pertinent to you, and we want to make sure that we're giving the podcast listeners here everything they want. And I think with that, I hope that helped you out. If you do have any other questions based on anything we said there, email me and I'll ask. Yeah, I'll answer you and give you the best information I can, and I'll push it off to Dan too.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for the question, man. Good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck. I hope you have a hell of a week.
Yeah. I know up in that area, man, that's some tough terrain.
Steep.
He's
gonna have a workout. Like I've hunted that area as a kid with family in rifle season, putting drives on and stuff. It's brutal. Yeah. Like to a point where I was like, why are we here? Like, why aren't we back at our camp where it's a little more gradual? Some of that is pretty rough.
Yeah, some of it is. So anyway, we talked about the podcast tonight being about beginner mistakes and that to avoid. Beginner mistakes to avoid when starting off. There's so many, but I think, Dan, you had some good things that just, from starting off that a lot of people ignore and take for granted, as far as safety things that are critical when going out, especially when you're going like RJ there and you're going out and you're gonna hump some territory and you're gonna be off way away from the road, from safety and stuff. So
yeah. Oh, beginner mistakes. You mean as far as if it can, it will?
Yeah. Well,
it's kind of Murphy's Law. With me, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have any at all. So for me, is a lot of it is knowing where you're at. Other people knowing where you're at. Our sister, we were at a birthday party for our dad, sorry. And she brought up a pretty good point. And I didn't ever know that she was really concerned about this until now. Dad's getting older. He has had shoulder surgery. Now she's even more concerned. Fair enough. I went home and started thinking about this, and she was like really questioning, do you guys know where he's going to be at? How do you know? Can I get an Apple AirTag for him? Can I do this? Can we do that? The thing is with us is we have hunting spots that are designated for the most part. Areas. And we know where each other are at. Before we go out, hey, I'm hunting red man. Hey, I'm hunting shortstop. Hey, I'm hunting bear trap. Hey, I'm hunting. Everybody kind of calls out where they're at. And if they're not in that spot, you can go down the road, see their vehicle, and pretty much know where they're going to be at, because a spot that's pretty close to that general area. Yeah. So, Angie, thank you for bringing this up. This kind of got me thinking about solo hunters and beginners. And beginners, you're going out there and you're kind of klutzy in the beginning. Like the tree stand, everything, it's all new, Mm-hmm. Something could possibly happen. So if you're going out there with your own and you're not like in a buddy system, please let somebody know where you're at. And if you're going somewhere that has cell phone service, kind of like drop a tag, hey, your girlfriend, your mom, whatever, drop a tag. Hey, this is where I'm at, FYI. And then of course, when you go to leave, let them know that you left the area, so they're not worried that you're still out there. But I look at it like that, if you're not somewhere where you can drop a tag and send anything to anybody, maybe if you go out and scout and you know that spot, you can drop a tag, save a GPS, like a waypoint at that point, and then be able to send it to a friend's on X or this or that, and be able to, get recognized of where you're at if something does go wrong. If it can, it will.
A lot of times I'll say when I go out to the guys, I'll say, hey, I'm going to this spot. It's a long hike. Yeah. Right. If I'm not back by, 9 o'clock at night, then start worrying, and then come look for me. But, there's times like that you, at least people understand, okay, he went really far. Yeah. He's in this area. We know it's a long hike. Boom. If we need to, we're going to give him a lot more leeway than saying, okay, it's 7:30 and he's not back at camp now. Yeah. So we do that.
Yeah. Like Angie brought that up. She's like, well, how do you know? Mm-hmm. How do you know he's okay? Well, we don't, in all fairness, but we kind of judge it by how long it's been since it got dark. And if he's not back yet, or he's not back yet, or he's not back yet, something's up. They're either one, something happened bad, or something happened two, really good. And they're tracking and starting the drag process, or they're marking where they last saw blood so that they can come get us to go help track, things like that. But we have a pretty good working knowledge of where everybody's at all times for safety reasons.
And a lot of times we have radios with us too.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason is the areas that we hunt, generally speaking, you don't have cell coverage. And a lot of times, the only time you're going to get coverage is if you're at the top of the mountain. Right. Yeah. And that's, you're not always hunting that high. So there's that. I enable for my wife, I enable my GPS location for that, let your friends know where you are feature or whatever it's called on iPhone. I have that set so that it goes to GPS automatically when I'm out of cell coverage, so that it'll send my location. My wife can pick up her phone and say, where is he at? So if something did happen, at least she has access to my location and can send that, to these guys or anybody else that needs to come looking for me. So now those things are extremely important. And along with that is something I've done ever since I've been hunting, ever since I got out of the military, because it's part of my military training and what I've lived with for years. Is I think these guys get tired of me talking about be careful with stuff because I'm Mr. Safety.
No, it's good.
But anyway, I take in my back of my car, I always have a medic kit. And in my pack, I have a soft splint. Mm-hmm. So if I broke my leg or something, I have some gauze, and it's thin, it's light, it's this big, you can't even tell it's in your pack. Something happens, I can take that gauze and wrap it around me. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. I can, at least quickly patch myself up. I can splint my leg or end arm or whatever. I don't know how many times I've fallen and been very lucky that I break something. Step in those holes that are just covered with leaves out there.
In between rocks.
Twist your ankle and stuff. It's just happened so many times.
It's an accident waiting to happen.
So it's not if it will happen, it's when. Right? So I always have, a lot of times I'm thinking, well, I have the full medic pack in my car. That's not doing me any good in the woods. Yeah, so at least I have those basic items with me because I don't want to weigh my pack down by taking this huge medic kit.
But if you can get back to your vehicle, you have some help a little bit.
At least they're there, because if you're bleeding and stuff, you have the gauze to try to stop bleeding, whatever.
So speaking of when, I got to thinking, this is it's going to get a little deep.
We're going to get into hunting stuff here in a second.
When, and I was thinking about this, with Angie and everything, knowing Dad, if something happens, it's like he's going to go out doing exactly what he loves to do. Like, God willing, I don't want to ever have to deal with that and walk in on that. Mm-hmm. I mean, dude's my best friend on the planet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I will have peace going, dude checked out doing exactly what he wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like,
and the good thing for him is
a better scenario.
He's not hunting out of a tree anymore. So,
no, that's So less can happen.
So that's off your mind anyway, right?
Yeah.
So let's dig into a couple other things here. So I think last time we talked a lot about first day mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. And you go into the woods that first day. I don't care who you are. And if you're listening to this and you happen to you're probably going to say, yep, exactly. You can practice with your stuff at home. You can climb the tree. You get all your stuff set and everything.
The first day you're all thumbs.
And if you're like us, a lot of people don't like to hunt morning hunts in the early season. And I love morning hunts in the early season because that's when deer are still on their patterns. And
to me, it's the only time to hunt because later in the afternoon it warms up so much, the bugs are out, and it is golden. I see so many deer on morning hunts in the beginning of the season that last year, first day, I had a 6-point walk right to my tree. So it's gold for me to get in there early in the morning and know where that spot is. So why didn't you shoot him? Okay.
He was a 6-point.
And?
So... But anyway,
can't eat the antlers.
I look back on it now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I'm talking about here is that you really do need, if you think you're going to just throw your pack on and your tree stand or whatever, and you're going to walk in there and you're going to get set up in the dark perfectly, or if you go in the afternoon and you don't hunt a morning hunt, you hunt the afternoon into the evening and you hunt till dark like you should not be getting out of that tree before dark.
I agree.
And you because that's when the deer are really moving.
Mm-hmm.
And
witching hour.
Yeah, that's another beginner mistake. Getting out of your tree before it's dark.
Premature.
That's
nobody likes the premature.
Do you know how many times I've been coming down out of a tree and there's been a deer standing right there, basically watching me come out of the tree?
Yeah.
Right, because that's when they are really moving, that low light time there before dark and right after dark. So don't get out of the tree early, man.
No.
But what I was talking about is practice. Get out there and do practice enough that you've, at least gotten everything out. You've done it like you really would. Even then, I screwed up last year. But even then, I think I always do something wrong. I get up there. I think I'd been given last year, I was given that Ozonics HR 500 unit. And I've never used anything like that in my life and never intended to, but they gave it to me for free to test. So I did. And the first day putting that up in the tree, I think it was like 20 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, I am so ate up. I could see it starting to get light. I was like, oh.
Now you feel rushed for all your other processes.
Everything. Yeah, I actually sat there, I think for 10 minutes, and I looked at my bow when it was getting light, and I forgot to put an arrow in. because of that damn Ozonics unit got me flustered.
Dude, I've already got up my tree, got everything ready, totally fell asleep, waiting for the sun to come up.
I've done that.
Wake up, look down right in front of me. There's a nice freaking doe that I could have taken. I don't have an arrow knocked. I don't have, just totally unprepared. But it's that early season where you almost care, but you don't. You know what I mean? Like, it's the beginning of the season. You're all amped up that it's archery season. You're just kind of going out to be able to go through the motions. Mm-hmm. But you're like I said, you're all thumbs. Like, I always hated the first hunt. As much as I love the idea of it being the first, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? It's like, you're so amped up that it's finally archery season, but at the same time, you're going out like, okay, like, I got to go through the motions. It's a long season. I got to get my pattern down, my timing down, you got to go through the motions.
Now, one of the things that I'm pretty good, I pride myself on, is I am big on what we did in the military as well, is pre-combat inspections, right? I make sure I have all my gear. I lay everything out.
I'm not good at this.
Down here in the basement, I get everything laid out. I pack my pack and my saddle how I want stuff to come out first, right?
Yeah.
So, and then go in last. So I always do the same thing. When I get to the tree, the stuff that comes out goes back in the same way.
Yeah.
That way, the next time I hunt, I don't have to figure it out again. I'll say, where's this at? Where's that at? So I am really meticulous about that. And when we're back at camp, a lot of times I'll be fiddling around and making sure that I'm set. I think you said in the last podcast, things that are critical here in the beginning, that you can't screw up because, you know, you take your flashlight out. Well, is the batteries from last year? Did you put your batteries in?
That's huge.
You know, there's your headlamp.
You get caught.
I always carry a headlamp and a flashlight.
That's how you screw up and get lost. Because in the dark, you know what I mean? You get turned around real quick doing that stupid shit.
Batteries. Make sure you have your gutting knife. Make sure you have something to drag the deer with.
Is your knife sharp?
Is your knife sharp?
Is it dulled from gutting and you know, cleaning up a deer from the year
knife
before?
that you have ready to gut a deer? You know, if you get one, you know, or do you plan on every time you get a deer, you're going to, you know, back out, go to your vehicle, get your stuff, and then go back out? Some people do that.
Do you have your drag rope?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
have your drag rope. Yeah. You're prepared to drag that deer out.
Did you already say that?
Yeah.
I'm
only right here.
Oh.
We don't want to dig into that. But anyway, so, but, you know, there's other things other than that hunt thing as far as beginner mistakes. We'll back off to scouting here in a minute, but when you're up in the tree or down on the ground, we talked about this, is a beginner mistake to avoid. And I did this myself last year and kicked myself in the ass at the beginning of the season. And I kind of tried to force myself to fix it, is as I keep telling myself, when I see a deer, right, I see that there's a deer, my bow's in my hand as soon as I think I can get away with it.
Yeah.
Right? The bow's in my hand and I am ready to draw. And then I'm going to draw early. I don't mind if I'm sitting there, sitting there for a little bit with it drawn. I don't want to be excessive.
Right.
Right? Sometimes you can't control that. I'd rather have to let down than have not been drawn and can't take a shot. So when there's very small windows, sometimes these things happen so fast. I've watched some of these hunting shows and these guys had the deer out in front of them for a half hour coming in and they have all day. But where we hunt, it's like, oh my God, there's the deer. He's coming in. All right, I got to do something now. If I don't, moment's passed. It's gone.
Yeah, like the big doe I got out down there at shortstop, I watched her for a half an hour way over there feeding along. It took her forever to get to where my shot window was. So that one was a challenge as far as like being ready the entire time. And, you know, and then you literally the window of shot, and it was a 40-yard shot at that window of shot was literally seconds. So you waited a half an hour for 12, not even 12 seconds of your life to be able to get that shot.
And even if you can stop a deer, so a deer comes in and they're walking and they're not stopping in your kill spot, and you just go, you give them a little, right? You know, what's that one guy always does a little whistle? I can't whistle, but anyway, yeah. And do a little, if they don't stop, sometimes I've gone, going real loud, real loud, and they still don't stop. Sometimes you're hosed on it, but if they do stop, that moment there, you better be ready to shoot at that moment.
I think your last fleeting call is, stop, damn it.
But if they stop and because they're going to look right in your direction, you have to let the shot loose. You have to be ready. You can't be
You don't really want to shoot at a deer while it's looking at you, but you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah, but that's where, here's another beginner mistake. Shooting center mass when a deer's looking at you.
Yeah, they're not good.
Do not shoot center mass because they're going to drop.
They're going to drop.
And they're going to probably drop a good 6-8 inches.
Yeah.
When they see that coming, they're like in the Matrix. They can really drop heavy on you. So you got to aim a little low in those instances when they're looking at you. And it's something that I've habitually done, and it's worked out for me.
Again, it happened to me this year. The buck.
Yeah. Shot a little.
I shot center mass. I was shooting uphill. I shot high, a little high in the center mass. Rookie mistake.
Yeah.
I mean,
and the distance you're shooting at really makes a difference too. If you're 15 yards, you probably don't have to worry that much. But if they're out at 30, 40, oh my goodness.
Dude, this shot was so close. I didn't calculate it. Again, it was a rookie mistake. It was one that has been eating me alive for redemption for this season. It has really fueled me to want to be better, and be able to, I need to go out there and correct this mistake. I need redemption. I can't keep going without this redemption. I need this season so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those things that sticks with you. There's nobody, I think, I wounded that one deer. My God, that's probably 10 years ago now, but I wounded that one deer, and we had Dad and Brad and stuff. We were out there. We looked all over. We had great blood, tracked, and that did not find that deer, and said, well, I'm going to go back out in the morning to find it, and it poured down rain.
Well, here's the thing.
There was nothing out there to find anymore, and it just broke my heart.
It does. That's the part, is because of my ignorance, I wounded a beautiful, majestic animal. I've said this so many times on this podcast already. If I keep saying it, it's because it's eating me alive. Yeah. And it hurt me that I did this. But here's the thing. We're all human. You're going to make mistakes. It's how do you limit those mistakes? How do you slow the process down to be able to limit the mistakes?
Yeah.
That's the hard part, is in the moment being like, even me, I've killed a lot of deer. Slowing that process down, not getting what do they call it? Buck fever.
And you know what? On Dan's part here, Dan did the most ethical thing ever after this. He said, "Help, I shot my deer. I'm done."
Yeah, I considered that my tag.
He said, "I'm not, I might shoot a doe, but I'm done. I'm done shooting buck." Right. So I'm done. And
a lot of people don't agree with that, but
you could tell how bad it hurt. But there's people that go out there and they'll wound one, they'll watch it go away. They won't go out and put the effort in to track it. They won't go in there the next day to look for it.
Yeah.
They won't say, "Hey, I know my buddy has a dog. Come out here and help me." Which very hard. Not everybody has that for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And then say, "Oh, I'm just going to go out and shoot another deer. That's one I didn't get. Well, I'm moving on to the next." It's if you put in the effort and you don't find it, and then you go hunt again, that's good. That's fine. It's going to happen.
No, I could have did that because it wasn't for lack of trying.
But you guys went over the top of the mountain.
I mean, I was at the bottom third of the mountain where I shot we went up over the mountain looking for this thing.
What were you, 400 yards from the road?
Up through a massive boulder rock garden. Like, it was brutal. It was brutal. And I
still can't believe it still went over the top of the mountain.
Dude, hey man, it's moments like that make you really appreciate these animals and how wonderful and crazy they are.
Which actually brings up a point too.
Like, how do they have that much blood in them?
We had this happen, and I think this contributed to that last year, is because we had it happen with Jevon's deer as well. One thing that I think we continually screw up on because we get so excited and anxious is that we don't back out. If you don't see the deer drop within that first 50 yards,
right?
If you see it drop, you're good. But if you don't see it drop and you hear it run off and there's no crash, right? Back out and give us some time, right? Or sit in your tree and wait a good hour, whatever it is. Sometimes, an hour's not enough. You want to wait, a couple hours, then go back out. And I think that's the mistake that we make a lot, is not giving the deer time, because everybody likes to say, "I never miss. I get a great shot," or whatever. That's the best lie. And that's like the fishing stories deal.
I was that before this season, because, here the reality is, for the most part, every single deer I've ever shot didn't go 50 yards. 30 yards, it was like a max. I'm a hell of a shot. I'm not trying to be egotistical. I'm pretty good.
I'm not buying anything.
That deer, I mean, it's the truth. Most deer that I shoot, they don't go far. It's shot. I'm pretty good. I can slow it down. I can, you know what I mean? Like, I have a knack. I'm a good hunter. I like to think I'm a good hunter.
Well, I had that one deer,
but this one,
14 that I lost there that I talked about. But every other deer that I shot, hasn't gone very far.
This one sticks in my craw because it was my first real big mistake. It was my first real big blunder where, so after this stuff happens, like, you have so much time, a whole off season, to replay things in your head. My shot placement, the not having patience, the walking in on him and kicking him out while he was laying there dying. And I had the opportunity to be able to recover this animal because he laid down to die. And then I kicked him out like a rabbit, and his adrenaline spiked again, and that was all she wrote.
I think that's a great point, right? Here's another beginner thing for you. If you do get down out of your tree or you're hunting all through around or whatever, and you walk to where you find that initial blood, right? And you track it, and you find a spot where the deer lay down. Because if you find a huge puddle of blood on the ground, it's usually because they laid down and they bled there a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? If you find that, immediately back out. Immediately back out.
And I did, and that's when I went and got Dad and Jevin.
It was a while there, yeah.
I shot and I waited an hour. Okay, maybe 45 minutes. It was a nice buck.
Yeah.
And I was excited.
Yeah, you get excited.
And
everybody gets excited.
I was like, man, I'm on a run right now, man. I got an 8-point last year, that big doe, blah, blah, blah. Like, here we go again. Here's another nice one. Man, this is really happening. And the sound of the hit sounded amazing.
Good
crack. I mean,
that's usually
I hit, it sounded like a wonderful rib whack. I mean, it cracked. And the way he took off, just like a rocket. I knew he was, and he was crouched down,
low to the ground.
I was like, oh,
that's a good indicator.
Dude, this boy is hurt. He's going down. This is good. I bet he's laying over there doing the curly shuffle. I don't know if it was my adrenaline in that moment. I stopped listening. So I never heard what happened after the, I kind of blacked out, I guess. It was just a stupid.
That's a great point too. Stop. You hit that and take that shot.
You got to listen it through.
If you don't see your arrow on the ground, right? Because you don't always see them, because a lot of times they do go into thick stuff or whatever.
With me hunting off the ground, they go like this and go under the.
Yeah, that's hard to find.
It's tough.
Yeah, I had that one with that one at Clump. Couldn't find that arrow. But anyway, so these are all things to consider. All things that, I don't care if you've hunted for a long time. Sometimes these things bite you because you get excited. You want to go in there right away. You want to go after them. Yeah, I think that's some good points to talk about with that. I think drawing, we talked about, is drawing when you have that deer, his head's away. It's that moment when his head's away, or in
the beginning, my first few years of archery, that was my number one bust. Starting to draw, I'd have a doe come up and I'd start to draw, just not being patient, knowing what that window is, like identifying.
Sometimes you have to wait for them to walk past you a little bit,
slow the process down, identify your window, not shot window, your draw window. From your draw window, get in your shot window, which you should have already evaluated the hours leading up to the deer coming in.
And that goes down to your distances. And I think another beginner mistake is thinking that you are going to have time to use a rangefinder when the deer's walking up. That's a lot of movement.
It is.
That's a lot of movement. And that must be just, our area, we hunt low deer density area. The deer are very sensitive. That extra movement of a rangefinder to where that deer's at, and then picking my bow up to draw and shoot it, that ain't happening.
Yeah.
I got a pre-range everywhere out in front of me.
I know how far that tree is.
This tree's 20 yards. That one's 15. So as soon as it gets light, I'm ranging everything. And making sure I know exactly what the ranges are. So when a deer walks up, and they're never going to be perfectly at 20 yards, they're going to be 18, they're going to be 23, whatever, so you got to have yourself set, because, and even the range tapes, very rarely, I'm a single pin guy. I do not adjust anything when the deer walks.
So this kind of contradicts, the single pin contradicts everything you just said. Do you know that? Do you know why? And here's why. Don't get mad about it.
I will tell you in a minute why you're wrong, but go ahead.
Okay, so maybe for you, because you got this military training, that the average guy doesn't know how to zone it like you do. Okay. So the average guy is 20. They got to click to 30, click to 40, click to 50. You see where I'm going with that? So for us, that single pin, they're click, 20. Nope. He's back to 30. No, for me, I got the 3 or 4 pins, That's my 20, my 30, my 40. Well, that's a 3-pin. I don't want to shoot over 40 yards, you know, so it's like I can just raise or lower my bow. I don't have to worry about the click, click, and then get back, and then click, click. You know what I mean? That's
So here's what he's talking about. I shoot single pin.
yeah.
Right. And I probably
You have your tape.
right, and it's set at 20 yards. I also have a 30-yard dot in my there. So, what I normally do is this. I have, when I go out and zero my bow, I know what my 20-yard, I'll zero at 20, right? And then I'll shoot 30, I'll shoot 10, I'll shoot 15, and I'll look at how many inches it is in between those shots where those shots hit. So what I won't do is make any adjustments. I'll have the target, I'll take those shots, and I'll see what that drop is at 30 yards. You know, is it 6 inches? Is it 10 inches? What is that drop between 20 and 30 yards? And now I adjust, I Kentucky windage it, and I've
Very successful.
very successful with it.
So
I did an actual 9-inch Kentucky windage.
you did,
shot.
which was an amazing shot.
Yeah.
Really.
And it's just because it's hard to explain.
You
That's
have a
just
whole
how I do it.
lifetime of this training.
Yes.
Yeah. Where the average guy doesn't. Like me, like I'm pretty a good shot, but not to that extent. I haven't thrown thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds downrange like you have, you know.
So I'm bracketing is what I'm doing.
You're
I'm
bracketing.
I'm
I said zoning. Okay,
So
you're bracketing.
if I can get myself in a 4-inch window, I believe I'm going to be successful. A deer's usually a lot. The kill box is usually more than a 4-inch window, or it's maybe a 6-inch square or whatever, that you can be successful in. So that's where I bracket myself and take the law of averages on there, and also take into account that deer's going to drop at least a little bit most of the time. So I use all that. So along with those yardages, and that's why it's essential for me to use that rangefinder and look at those distances, because then I can go and I pull my bow up and I'll do some practice draws in the tree, and I'll look at it and say, okay, if I have to shoot this, I'll do that. Just say it over my head, and I'll be ready to go.
I got to ask, something just came to me. Are you going to be milkweeding as much this year? I think for me, last year was such a struggle with that because of how swirly the wind is that it frustrated me.
I actually believe that last year was my most successful year with the wind. I told you I didn't have any deer blow at me the whole year.
Yeah.
That's a record for me. I did have that HR 500 Ozonics unit with me. Not all the time, but most of the time.
You took it out a lot.
Yeah, I took it out a lot and put it on my downwind side, right? We did have swirling winds.
That's just it.
So, but I tried to use the thermals a lot to my
It was
advantage.
so rarely calm.
The wind swirled a lot. That's why I also always use additional scent control measures. Try to shower, try to do a lot of
Pull
different
that
things.
box out. Off to your right.
What's that?
Phase.
Which box?
The phase.
Oh, the phase. I'm like, what's Dan talking about? I have this box here. It's called phase.
No, we had talked about this in a prior podcast, and this was so like here you have a lotion that you would put on before you go out. This is a body wash, so you take the shower before you go out. This is laundry detergent, so you wash your clothes before you go out. Shampoo and conditioner, obviously you know what to do with that. Here's the cool one. This is the field foam. So the field foam is like a mousse. So once you get out and you're all sweated up and you get to your spot, you spray this stuff in your hand and you put it through your hair, your facial hair,
It's supposed to close your pores.
and what it does is it closes your pores. It blocks that odor from coming out of you. I'm really excited for this product for this season.
Neither of us have used this ever before.
No.
So
I only seen it in commercials.
so Dan and I got enamored with this up in our cabin,
We
watching
did.
the outdoor channel, right? Saw it and said,
Hey, you got to do something when you're drinking.
said yes, and said, hey, I'd like to test this out. So
Yeah, here
I'll
we
be
go.
testing the phase system out this year. And the hardest thing is it's hard to really identify if it works or not. But I can tell you that I spent like 2 years thinking that I was just going to hunt the wind, right, and not use scent control measures a lot. I think I would spray my boots and stuff. Still.
Yeah.
But I was not really
You were relaxing.
showering in the morning and stuff and everything. And I saw my least amount of deer, although I did get that one buck. but I had a bad year up to the point where I got that buck.
Yeah.
And I wasn't seeing as many deer. Last year, I saw a ton of deer. And I attribute it to the scent regimen I was using in concert with the wind. And of course, I had the ozonics. But
like me, I feel like I kind of am trying to go a little above and beyond with that because of hunting off the ground. I'm a little more vulnerable with my scent.
And make no mistake, we know that the deer can smell you anyway.
Yeah.
We look at this as
nothing's foolproof.
We look at this as a minimizing your signature thing, not a elimination thing.
Right. Yeah.
You know, they say scent elimination, but
there's nothing going to truly stop that.
That's a fairy tale. You know, your clothes, if you have good scent elimination clothes on you, you're going to minimize your external signature. So,
I mean, we're not the bubble boy. Sorry, it was a little Seinfeld thing.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about
a lot.
There's a lot of good stuff there. But so when it comes to scouting, what do you think some beginner mistakes are for scouting?
Not recognizing the difference between historical and fresh.
Yeah.
Like a scrape that has a bunch of, I just said it 20 minutes ago about having leaves in it. That I think not recognizing fresh, hot deer sign and mistaking it for what it's not.
Yes.
That would be my biggest rookie mistake.
I got a great story about that last year. So last year I was on a hunt and it had rained the night before, and I'm walking in to the spot, and as I'm walking in, I'm flashlighting as I'm getting to my spot, and I hit probably 3 different scrapes, and all of them had that hard, had not been touched look because of the rain. You could tell the rain had flattened them out, right? So I'm hunting. I see a buck probably 100 yards from me, maybe 70 yards at closest, and I watch it go up the hillside beyond me, and I'm like, I never even noticed that trail before. So yada yada yada. I get done my hunt and I say, I'm going to scout up here a little bit. So I drop my bag and everything, and I climb this pretty steep incline. I get up to the top, and when I get there are scrapes that right after that rain that had just been tore up, and I go, dang it, that deer came up and hit this scrape right after I saw it. Yeah. And that is a huge indicator when you can see the difference between something that's been flattened out from rain and then all of a sudden, dug up. Yeah. And he tells you. The other thing is tracks. And if you see a lot of, if you see crumbles around the track, or if it's in mud and it's very, very fine lines and really sharp, it's fresh.
It's fresh.
If it's dull, it's not fresh. So those are indicators.
You know the difference between a deer hoof print and a size 12 Lacrosse Alpha Burley Pro boot.
As soon as you started saying that, I knew you were saying. Oh, I knew you were saying as soon as you did it. That's funny.
I had to, sorry.
That will get you far, because if you're following those tracks, you're probably on the heels of another hunter.
And then off in the distance, you start hearing, you're like, that's not a deer, that's a human, trying to make a grunt
I think
call.
I talked about this mistake I made last year when we did this. I was hunting, and you know how I am. So I'm hunting this spot that we call Vincent, and in a tree, and I get totally ticked if another hunter's anywhere near me. I have this thing.
He does.
I'm trying to get over it. Because of that, this incident I'm talking about.
He gets mad, but he's not utilizing the hunting pressure to his advantage.
Because I want to be isolated and alone.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Fair enough.
So I am trying to come around to it because of this, what I'm about to say. So I'm in this spot, and I'm close enough to the road because of the rut trails that run in there.
Right.
I'm close enough to the road that I see a vehicle pull up, and it pulls up, and it is probably 5 o'clock.
Like right at witching hour.
5 o'clock, and it gets dark by 6:45 or something like that night. The individual walks up right by me, and I had just had a deer coming into me, right, from behind, and I didn't see it. I didn't know what it was, but I heard it coming in, and it was because it was crunchy, it was cold, it was coming in on me, and I was sitting there with my bow, and I was ready. Well, this hunter comes in, watch out, I put my bow back on the hook on the tree. I sit there, I watch this hunter, I'm fuming.
He got back to camp. He was pretty locked up, but
so this guy also then decides at 20 after 6 that he's done hunting and he's coming out way before, you know, it's getting dark.
Maybe he just had to go take a dump.
Like he had a crossbow and a pack and everything. Didn't have a tree stand. But anyway, I was like, are you kidding me? You came in here and hunted for like an hour and 20 minutes. It's like crazy, unbelievable. I don't know where he went, but it couldn't have been too far. Anyway, yada, yada, yada. I am sitting there looking at him going down his vehicle. I have my binos pulled up looking at who the hell is this guy? I'm so ticked off, so immature. But anyway.
It's like road rage.
I'm sitting there, I'm looking through my binos, and I put my binos down quick.
Oh, pissed off.
Pissed off. And boom, all I see are the horns running away.
He had a buck right below him.
Right under me. Right under me.
But he was too busy having road rage, hunter rage. Yeah.
So that buck had gone away at first when that hunter came in, but he had come back.
Yep.
And
missed your opportunity.
Missed my opportunity. And
it would have been the best redemption to shoot that buck, have him drop, and be able to drag him out right to where that hunter just, you know what I mean? Like,
that'd have been sweet.
It'd been bittersweet. Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, the mistake there is don't assume just because another hunter's near you that the deer are not going to come back in.
Something just fired up over here.
Yeah, that's my water heater. But
we need hot water.
Yeah. Well, so you have anything more, Dan?
No, I'm pretty much the where are they now type thing with the let somebody know where you're at. Like that's like kind of like my biggest safety thing right now. And it's not, this doesn't go for a beginner. This is for everybody. Like respect the people that love you. You know, let them know where you're at. Like drop a pin, get an air tag, whatever you got to do. Let somebody know where you're at.
Yeah. And the only other thing I have to add to that, the whole subject here is one of the things that we kind of beat up every episode up till now is bow preparation. Having your bow ready, been shooting.
Yeah.
Don't be that guy. There's an episode that says, don't be that guy.
Yeah, wax your string, dude.
Don't be that guy that takes your bow into the bow shop to get it ready for the season a week before the season starts. Don't do that.
Don't be that guy.
Have that bow ready now. Yeah. Get out and shoot. Be ready.
Where are they now? Sorry.
Well, there you go. I think we covered a lot. I hope the episode helped you. RJ, I hope you like how we answered your question. I hope it helped.
Again, good luck. Thanks for your service, man.
Yep.
Appreciate you, man.
And once again, I'm Mike. This is Dan, the Everyday Bow Hunter podcast. We'll see you next time. Hey, this is Mike once again. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you want even more content from the Everyday Bow Hunter, I invite you to go over to everydaybowhunter.com or archeryhunting.com. It's the same website for the Everyday Bow Hunter. In addition, if you haven't subscribed, go to our YouTube channel. We have a lot more than the podcast there. Have more video coming every day, a lot more content. In addition, if you go over on your podcast channels, if you're already there, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, please give us a 5-star review. Give us a follow. We really appreciate it. In addition, if you see an Everyday Bow Hunter shirt like this, go ahead, go to the website, go to YouTube, click on it, buy one of our shirts. Every little bit helps. We're not sponsored by anybody. In addition, in our descriptions and our show notes, we highlight products that we use and buy that we love. Now, every time you click on one of those links, we get a small commission. It really helps us out. Like I said, we're not sponsored by anyone. You're our sponsor. So with your support, we can make this channel even better. I appreciate it. And until then, I will see you next time.